Okay, welcome, everybody to our second guest expert, technically third, I guess, for Groove School, but in Groove Seekers, this is our second, and I'm so excited to have my friend and Groove Schooler Tiffany Brandon joining us. So I'll give you a quick little bit about how Tiff and I came to know each other. We actually met through a mutual friend. And Tiff has done some work for me on social media, and she ran her own agency with doing virtual assistant work. And so she's done a lot of social media posting and scheduling and ran social media campaigns for other entrepreneurs. And for a couple of things that I had going on, Tiff did some amazing work for me. And I'm picky about social media. Tiff and I have talked about this topic a lot. And so within the Groove Seekers community, there are a lot of women that are running kind of side hustles or have their own gig like me, And social media is just one of those completely overwhelming, make you batshit crazy kinds of topics. And so I thought, what an awesome opportunity. And Tiff is fantastic at social media and strategy. And then the best part, so the title of the session is How to Not Suck at Social Media or Let It Suck the Life Out of You. Because I think it can be one of those all-consuming things. There's so many options, and knowing what platform likes what kind of stuff and just all that crap. And so Tiff doesn't pull punches. She's a no BS kind of gal. That's why we love you. And so I'm so super excited to have you on with us, Tiff. So welcome. And so take it away. You can tell us anything you want about you and I and Groove School and Groove Seekers and whatever, and then just kind of get started. And then we're going to do a little Q&A. And if anybody has questions that are live with us, of course, they can pop on and ask too. So
yeah, absolutely. If anybody has questions at any point, feel free to jump in where it makes sense. I'm Tiffany, and everything Rebecca said about me was true, so that's good.
I think she's awesome and badass.
Thank you. I fell into social media sort of like I fall into just about everything in life. In addition to being a total and utter klutz in real life, I just sort of fall into these different parts of my life and career. And I worked for a bank quite a few years ago, and they were just getting started with their Facebook page. That was the only thing they were getting into for social media. And I sort of worked in a sideline department, and it came to me. And I remember distinctly being like, social media is so stupid. Why would any business want to be on Facebook? Right. What is, just being so negative. And then when I was done with all of the bureaucratic stuff that had to happen, I was like, thank God I'll never touch social media again.
Isn't that funny?
It's become like the biggest part of my, one of the biggest parts of my jobs. And so it's kind of funny to me because I think that I feel or have felt the way that a lot of us feel, that social media is a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's a pain in the ass, and you don't get anything for what you put into it. And almost every one of those statements is kind of accurate in some ways.
Right.
It really depends on your goals with social media and accepting it for its place in your life and in your job and your business.
Right.
And so that's what I really want to talk about, is how we can make social media not so sucky. And by that, I don't have any magic bullets that I'm going to give you tonight that it's going to if you do this, this, and this, social media will be awesome.
Right.
I hope to change what we think about social media and how we perceive it and where it is in our tool bag that we put on when we're in our businesses.
Awesome.
So, the main thing that I want to talk about is what social media is and what it should be for your business. And social media is about being social. That's what it's there for. It is about creating connections. It's about creating a community. It's for getting interactions. And it's really not about sell.
Right.
The best social media accounts out there are really adept at mixing in their products or their services along with snapshots of their business, showing their employees, talking about things in their community, talking about ways that they serve, and just sort of seamlessly kind of blending it all together. And so that's really what I think your focus should be, if you step back for a second and say, I don't really care about making X dollars this month off of social media. I care about making 5 real connections.
Right.
And that's something you and I have talked about, Rebecca. Like, you have to put it in its place, and you have to view it where it should be viewed. So,
right. So I actually have something, if I can share a couple things with you here. So when you and I were kind of talking about this session, what you just talked about, it came up for me. So I'm in a mastermind group, and one of the women in my group is, she runs an academy for female musicians.
Okay.
A very specific, very niched down kind of business, right? And we were talking about Instagram, which I'm sure you'll get into the platforms a little bit, right?
Yep.
And she said, I just, so she is looking for female musicians. Mm-hmm. That is her customer, right? And she said, I just don't really know, like, when I think about taking pictures, because Instagram is all about, visuals. Right. She's like, I just don't really get even how, like, what I can share that's about music. And I stopped her and I said, that's exactly the point. It doesn't have to be about music because your business is about music. It can be about you and your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Yeah.
Right. And so this whole idea, I think one of the ways we can free ourselves from these weird shackles of like always making everything businessy, even in hashtagging, which I'm sure you'll get into, it doesn't always have to tie back to your business, because you are your business. You're the face of your business. And as a person with multifaceted parts of yourself, the goal is to show as much of that as you can within reason, right? Because every weird little nuance about who we are as people is a connection point.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. And I think it's, like I said, it's really important to realize this is a tool, not the tool. It is not the only thing you do for marketing and sales and growing your community. And when I say community, I mean the people who are going to want to see your posts, are going to want to read what you have to say.
Right.
I don't necessarily mean like growing a Facebook group or anything like that.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. I think when people are so focused on it being always about their business is when they turn people off and they lose interactions. Mm-hmm. When I think on just Facebook, for instance, the people that I follow and the things that I tend to interact with and read are really about like kind of some heavy crud, like about stuff people are going through and their use of humor and their use of all of their tools to kind of keep going. I don't want to see your perfect life. I'll watch the Kardashians if I want to watch someone's fake perfect life.
Right.
I want to know what's behind you, because if I think you just think you're perfect, I'm going to like quit interacting with you right now, because I'm so far from perfect and I have so not a perfect life that like I can't relate with you if you just always want to show me what you look like, always in makeup and always with your hair done, and you don't want to tell me about when you're fighting with your kids and your spouse or whatever, or when your dog barfs. Like I want to know all the nitty gritty parts of your life, because I want to know you're a real human, not a robot.
Right.
And
it's
perfect point.
Social media makes it so damn easy to filter it all out.
Right. Yeah.
That's what makes it so hard, It's super tempting to put filters on like even our photos,
Right. And I think, there is a time and place for that. For instance, When I sent you my picture, I was like, yeah, I went and edited it. And then I got way into it and I was like, no. We need to pull back. You still need to look like yourself.
Like mold your cheekbones.
Right. Yes. We want to present a good face to the world, but honestly, you're doing no one out there any service by pretending to be perfect and by pretending that the only thing you have going on in your life is your business. And I think that it's those peeks behind the curtain to me that always are so intriguing. And that's almost always, without a doubt, for me, what's going to get me invested in following somebody and waiting for their next post to come out.
Right.
Versus just like, oh yeah, it's another ad for your insert product.
Right.
But yeah, that is all completely on point.
Right. It's so interesting.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about is taking a little pressure off of ourselves. So I'm going to tell you right now, there is no magic bullet. There is no perfect post. There is no perfect posting schedule.
I would have figured it out if there were.
Right, exactly. If there there were, everyone would know.
Right.
And then it would no longer work. And if you're looking at somebody on Instagram, for instance, that has hundreds of thousands of followers, and you're like, oh, I need to get there. And they look like they have this fabulous life. That's their job. Okay. Their whole job is being a personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, those people that have YouTube channels and are posting all the time, that is almost always their career. So they're not creating a product, or they're not offering a service. Their whole career is about being a personality online.
Right.
And so if you're trying to run an entire other business and do social media, you are never going to get that level of interaction because it's not what you're putting your entire focus behind.
Right.
So stop fretting so much over what you're writing. Stop fretting so much over the images you're using. And I would say give up on perfection and aim for consistency and authenticity. Those are far and away going to get you and keep you more followers than anything. If you want to buy followers, I will go look up 5 sites right now for anything that you want to use on social media, and I can tell you how to pay for followers. You won't keep them. And when people realize that you have a lot of followers and no interaction, that's when they drop off. So remember that we're always aiming for being consistent, being authentic, and really going for those connections.
Like true followers instead of just the numbers. Because it is a numbers game, and it's so easy to get caught up in that hustle for likes and that hustle for followers and that hustle for friends or whatever it is, whatever your metric is.
Right.
But realistically, it is about quality over quantity, even on social media. Now, because again, like you said, unless you're trying to hit that influencer level where your numbers have to be at a certain point for anybody to even look at you, most of us, that is not our game, right? We're trying to use social media like you said, as a tool to market something about a business, whether it's a service or a product. But it's so easy to fall into that trap. And really, it's about engagement.
It is.
It's really about engagement and how much people are paying attention and connecting with us, not necessarily just liking something.
Well, and I think one true interaction with somebody on a post where they really get what you're posting and they're really interacting back, and it's very heartfelt and it's not just a thumbs up or a smiley face, I think that's worth like 500 likes in reality. Because when you see comments and you see people sharing something and putting their own information at the top of it, like I want this to be known to be part of me. Right. That is so pure and it's so true. And in an age where we increasingly only communicate with certain audiences and people online, they have to know who's behind that post. Right. And the other thing I'll say is you still, even years after viral videos became a thing, it's still really hard to determine what will become viral and how it will become viral and when it will become viral. So something that last year was all the rage, no one's doing anymore online.
Right.
And so it's hard to say, oh, if I write this line, like that's going to hook them and everyone will come flooding to my website or flooding to my business. And so again, I think the more that you can aim to just post consistently, put a consistent message out there and be really authentic, you're going to get a much more realistic view of how social media can help you. And one thing about that is that I think you have to start by getting really clear about what your business is, who it serves, who you want to connect with, and how you want to create your community. I would say almost most of us that jump into a business don't really spend the time thinking about this. I sure as heck didn't. And if you're in a direct sales or network marketing company, I bet you have somewhat of an idea based on what other people have told you, but you don't really know who your audience truly is or who you want it to be. And so that's just a simple set of questions. Do I connect more with females or males? Do I connect more with people under 40 or over 40? Do I connect more with people in the Midwest or in the South or in the East or wherever?
Right.
What types of things do they like to connect about? What, and you can dive way deep into like creating your perfect avatar and
Oh, Lord,
doing all this. But I would say ask yourself 5 questions. Male, female, age range, what do they like to do? What do they not like to do? Where do they live? And where do they want to connect with me? And if you can answer those 5 questions pretty easily, you have a really clear path on how your social media should go.
Right.
And then I think the other thing is realize you don't have to do anything you don't want to. So like, get real with yourself. If you know you can't post every single day of the week, stop trying. Like, pick a schedule that you can commit to and stick with. So maybe it's once a week, maybe it's twice a month, maybe it's every day. I don't know.
Because it doesn't matter. Because like you said, it doesn't matter. Because there's not like a perfect, beautiful, amazing formula. There's not a formula.
Right.
It really is about what you can commit to doing. And to that point too, I think deciding which platforms you want and which ones you don't. Like I quit Twitter this year.
Yep.
And it's because legitimately I didn't check it. I couldn't use it as effectively as I wanted to. And sometimes you've got to just make choices.
Yeah. So, absolutely. And that's one of the questions that came up is about like, what's the best social media site?
Right.
And so we'll definitely get into that, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the different sites and what they're good at, and why you would maybe want to be on one of them. But you're absolutely right. If you hate Facebook, don't be on Facebook.
Right.
If you don't get Instagram and it's not really right for your business, don't pressure yourself to be on there. So just get real. What do I want to post? How often do I want to post it? What can I commit to and stick with? That simple. And there is no answer that is the right or wrong answer there. It's what's right for you, because if you're posting 5 days a week, 4 times a day, and you hate it, it will show.
Right. There'll be no inspiration, right? They'll be completely uninspired. Right. Yeah. It is. And I sometimes feel that way. I have those moments where I'm just like, I don't feel creative.
Yep.
And I don't know what I want to put, and I don't know what I want to write. And I batch my stuff, which I know we're going to talk about too, is like batching, but
Yep. But yeah, I think it's, stop putting all this pressure on yourself. Stop looking at what other people are doing as far as like their numbers. Again, as with anything in life, the less we compare ourselves to others, the happier we are with ourselves, right? When we just compete with us, and stay in our own lane a little bit, it makes everything in life so much better. So I think that that's a really important point to note, is like, do what you want to do with social media. And your point about batching, that was kind of my next thing, was that
perfect.
When you sit down to do your social media, I know you talked about this the other day in group school, where you were talking about like, I just sat down and like penciled out my entire next year.
I did. Whole flipping year.
And that sounds so daunting, right? If you're struggling to get 2 posts out next week, that sounds hellacious, but it's not.
Right.
And what I mean by batching is, whether you want it to be weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly, you make the decision. Again, don't put pressure on yourself. Do as much as you can do, but sit down in a quiet spot and give yourself maybe even just an hour and say, what do I want this next time period to look like for my social media?
Well, and to this point, let me just quick say, I batched by the month for 6 months. So for the past 6 months, I was batching all of my next month's content out.
Right.
So once I got in a good rhythm with that, I just decided, why am I just taking a month at a time?
Yeah.
And then I themed, so I'll just tell you, I themed every single month. So there's this overarching theme of what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to share, what I'm going to do on Facebook Live, what I'm going to share in Groove Seekers. And so once I mapped out 12 themes, then it gets really easy to just pick 4 subtopics, And so all the social media isn't created yet for the entire year, but when I go to do the monthly social media that's going to follow that, the months are already decided. So even that can help. And literally that took me 3 hours, which sounds like a lot of time, and it is. But I have a really good roadmap now, you know?
Well,
So
and I would say the 3 hours you just spent are going
yeah,
to save you at least 4 times that amount of hours next year, because you would probably spend
totally.
3 hours a month sitting
Right.
down and going through that same process. It's like cleaning your house, right? Like when you start, it's not that hard to keep going. Or when you exercise, not that
Totally.
I know what that's about, but I've
Drinking
been
beer.
told,
When I start
yeah,
drinking beer,
drinking
it just
beer,
gets
right?
easier and easier.
It's like drinking scotch. It burns a lot at first, but once you get through the first half a glass, life is
Just
amazing.
gets easy.
Right,
So I mean, so
exactly.
I think
So,
you're right though. Like to your point, it sounds like I wouldn't just run around and say to everybody like batch a year out because that sounds insane. But I had a lot of practice batching month by month by month, and I just realized like I need to take this bigger picture view. And I'm
yeah,
so excited about it now. And I probably
yeah,
will still batch my actual social media posting
yep,
by the month or maybe even by the quarter. But I have a plan now. And like you said, and it's also not just the time I've saved, but it's that energy, that scattered energy, you know,
right.
I won't feel that way next year. I'll be a lot more focused, which is always good for me to be focused.
Right. And I
I'm
think, and that
scattered one.
directly ties back to consistency, because you have a plan now. So if life goes off the rails for 3 weeks in January, you
Right.
don't run into February like, oh my God, what do I do? What am I going to post? You
Totally.
have you have a like a backbone you can fall back on when life gets cruddy.
Yep.
Or you want to go on a 3 week vacation. Wouldn't that be lovely?
It would be lovely.
um, or somebody in your family is having surgery and you know that you're just not going to be able to devote the time. The more you can have even just penciled out on
Right.
a calendar ahead of time, the easier that period gets for you. And you're absolutely right. Sitting down and thinking about doing a quarter or a year, if you're not doing any planning right now, that's insane. I would say take a half hour one
Do a
day during
month.
the week and plan out your next week even, or plan
Yep.
out your next month.
Exactly. Right.
um, and if you have products that you're selling, that also changes things up, because you obviously are going to want to highlight your products.
Right.
But you can have themes around that. If you sell crafts, for instance, what are you selling right now? I would imagine holiday crafts, right? So
Mhm.
you could know in August, hey, November, I start ramping up my holiday craft posts, and I start posting how-tos or teaser pictures or whatever the heck it is. And then
Right.
I know full on in December up until the third week of December, I'm posting about my products. And
Right.
then maybe in January, it's like, a total different shift. So again, this doesn't have to take days. It doesn't have to even take hours. You can sit down and say like, what do I want to talk about in February? I want to talk about love because it's Valentine's month.
That's
Or
my theme. That's my
right.
monthly theme. It's love, which sounds
Yeah.
really stupid, but it's not at all. Like
No.
you can tie so many things, and it's things I love and the way I show love to people. And, obviously, like
Right.
you make it what you want to make it. But the year naturally lends itself to ideas about themes. And all I got to do is
Right.
just pay attention and think, how can I make this theme feel fun and light? And I think for me, it's always about, does it feel heavy or light?
Right.
If it feels heavy, figure out a way to lighten it up, because there's options. I think like you said,
Right.
if you're driving yourself crazy over it, you're not doing it right. Like fix
No.
change it.
And you'll be bitter. And I love the fact that you said my theme is love. Like that is so all encompassing. You have a shell of what you want to talk about that month, but you can go anywhere with it, like you said.
Mhm.
So you don't have to sit down and think like, in January, I'm going to talk about finances, and I know I'm exactly going to talk about like opening a new account and planning a
Right.
budget. I'm just going to talk about finances. That's enough to get started with.
Right.
And the fun thing about batching is I would say do that. Sit down, plan out your period of time, just pencil it in and walk away. And like come back, schedule an hour the next week to actually sit down and flesh out something. So
Right.
maybe for you, in a couple of weeks when all the holiday hubbub is done, you'll sit down and actually plan out the end of January and February. And maybe you'll go further and do March and April. And then you'll know, hey, I have until mid-April before I really have to think about social media again,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. But I would agree, picking out a theme, super helpful. It's going to help you guide yourself towards what comes naturally and what you're going to talk about. And it just really helps. I also would say, like, do it for a period of time, and then also leave some gaps in your schedule in case things come up. You know, for Groove School, you have a theme, but what if something terrible happens in February? Or what if something amazing happens in February? You don't want your schedule so packed that you can't put in those, like, I'm having a bad day things, or I need some advice, or hey ladies, this popped in my head.
Right.
You know, so don't schedule yourself where, like, you have something going out every single hour of every single day.
Right.
And then the last thing I really want to talk about before we get into questions is get help. You can get help. You can buy things. You don't have to feel like you need to do it all yourself. So there are lots of tools out there. There are some amazing tools for buying content. You can go buy beautiful images. You can create beautiful images, but for $1 a piece on some sites, you can get a great background image. Don't feel like you have to get your camera and go out and take pictures if you hate that.
Right.
If you love it, cool, groove on it. If you don't, like, there are so many sites out there. And more importantly, there are so many places you can get free stock images. And then you just put your own writing on top of it. Life goes on. In your instance, Rebecca, I know, like, you've clearly had some professional images taken of yourself, and you reuse them. And that's fantastic. You don't have to get a brand new image for every day.
Right.
If you're very visual and that's what you love, awesome. But spend some time and effort and develop one for each day of the content that you provide, or for each month, or a theme, or whatever, and just roll with it. If anybody comes up to you and says, I noticed that you've been using that image over and over again, you have full authority to, like, punch them in the gut and walk away. That's how I feel when people
right here.
Right. Yeah. Give them a karate chop in the throat, giggle, and walk away.
Third time I've done this now.
So hang on, I was just like having an issue here.
No, go ahead.
I stirred it once, put it in for 15 minutes, taken it out, started it again. This will be the
Okay.
third.
This is it then.
Is that right?
This is it then. Yep.
Can't start shit, man.
I'm a mom and a wife. And this is the thing, right? We do these evening things where I can't control my environment. It's going to happen.
Right.
I'm sorry. Apologize.
No, you're absolutely fine. And this is perfect, Rebecca, because this is exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
It would not be authentic for you to just black out your screen and walk away and disappear for a half hour. You have a life. You have people that need answers to something right now. You have a sick kid tonight. I mean, stuff happens.
I look just like totally like a drowned rat today. It's funny.
You look fine. It's 8:30 at night.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't look like this at all today until about 6.
You look fantastic. Nobody's here to look at me. They're here to listen to you. So it's good.
Well, whatever's working, right?
Yeah, I totally.
Anyway, okay, so buy content if you need help. You can buy images. You can have people write blog articles. You can buy quotes. You can find quotes. You can find inspiration. Stop feeling like you have to reinvent the wheel and do everything yourself. If you really feel like it would be beneficial to you, you can hire a VA. You can hire a content or social media manager. That's going to be beyond the pay scale of most people, especially if you're running a side hustle. You probably don't want to pay someone to do your social media. But there are definitely people out there. There are people that are highly qualified.
Right.
And if you hate the actual mechanics of social media, it's probably worth it. And you can find people in every single country of the world. It might take a little bit of going back and forth with different people. But if you truly want the help, or if you truly don't have time and energy to devote to this, you can find help. Rebecca turned me on to Jasmine Star, and she has incredibly high quality images. She's actually a professional photographer. And so she has amazing images, amazing ideas. And she is at jasminestar.com and also mysocialcurator.com. And Rebecca will probably talk about this, but mysocialcurator.com is really awesome because for a small monthly fee, You get access to high quality images. You get access to essentially, like, she'll develop for that month an entire social media theme.
Right.
And she'll provide post things, and you can edit them for yourself or kind of use it just maybe more as a game plan. But fantastic. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I would do if I was getting started and I didn't want to have a huge investment, but I know going out and finding images is going to drive me nuts. So I'll let you talk about her a little bit.
Well, yeah, so I was turned on to her through a membership group that I'm a part of. And so I signed on. It's $25 a month. And again, like, I would never, I have enough experience with social media planning that I wouldn't ever just take her templates and run with them. But I love the fact that she gives you, it's almost like prompts. They're almost like scripts. They're almost like Mad Libs.
Right.
Is what they're like. So if anybody remembers Mad Libs, it's like she gives you pieces of sentences and then it's like, insert this here, like your noun here. I mean, it's not noun or adjective, but it's the same kind of idea. And I think it's just really cool because she's very smart, she's very savvy, and then she's got pictures that accompany these things, or she gives you ideas of photos of your own that you could take to accompany those, so it's just, for me, it's just like another hit of inspiration, and I love it. And it kind of fills the gaps for me when I'm feeling, because I post close to every day.
Right.
And I have, I've got a free group, I've got my paid group, and I've got Rebecca Undum, the business page. I've got Instagram, I've got LinkedIn.
Right.
It's a lot of stuff, and they don't all get the same thing, right? So for me, it's just it kind of rounds out my inspiration, and I've loved it. It's really good. Totally worth checking out. And you're not locked in. You just go month by month. So pay
and like
$125. Right.
Yeah. And how many images do you get for that?
You get 15.
So you're getting like 15 and like seriously high quality, beautiful images.
They are.
And like you said, they're all sort of around that theme of the month. So you can definitely completely take this and modify it for your own uses.
Right.
Or not. But that being said, there are tons of websites out there where you can find beautiful free images that you don't have to talk about who you got them from. So that is just an option if you're looking for a little bit more, less of an a la carte and more of a little bit more of a easy to consume chunk.
Right.
You also can use tools for posting like CoSchedule, Hootsuite, Sprout Social, Meet Edgar, Constant Contact, Planoly, Later, blah, 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 blah. And there are tools out there that are completely free. There are some that are very nominal. They're about like, $10 a month, all the way up to $75, $80, $95 a month. And what those tools do are allow you to schedule across a broader variety of social media sites in one place. So instead of logging into Facebook and doing it, logging into Twitter and doing it, you put them all on one giant calendar, more or less. They're not necessarily for everybody. If you're posting once a week on 2 sites, I probably wouldn't mess with it, but they can be phenomenal. And almost all of them have really awesome tools for helping you plan. I know CoSchedule writes some fantastic articles about social media, and they're also based in North Dakota. So
I love CoSchedule. I do. That's the one that I use, and I love it. It connects to WordPress. So my blog posts, you can just pull up you can just click share an old post, and you can go back and just click any post from before that you want to share. So like I recently just shared an article I had written, back in spring about it was on Small Business Saturday, and it was about shopping local, and it's kind of cool. Like if there's something timing wise or something else happens, and you can link back to your old stuff if it applies. So if people are blogging, they should definitely check out CoSchedule for that reason, because you can connect it to your blog too.
Definitely. And I would say each tool, and I've used almost all of them, of the main ones, each tool has a thing that they're better at or a thing that they're known for. So Meet Edgar, for instance, is a great tool for, you put it in once and it will reschedule itself. So if you really want to recycle and reuse your content, you don't have to constantly be thinking and 4 months down the road, I'd also like to talk about this again. You just put it in, you build one schedule, and it rolls. CoSchedule is fantastic for helping. They have some great free tools I use for coming up with headlines and for
Headline
analyzing.
analyzer, right? It's
So
awesome.
good. Hootsuite, super easy, super cheap to get into.
Mhm.
Not as pretty, not as beautiful, but it connects to pretty much everything. They have, all of them pretty much have bulk uploader. Sprout Social has a fantastic RSS feed program
Cool.
where you can get really granular about who else's content you want to share. So check them all out. What I do when I'm like analyzing something for somebody, just go do a quick Google search, like CoSchedule versus Hootsuite versus Sprout Social, and you'll find probably at least 10 blog posts where other tech companies have reviewed all these, and they'll even usually lay them out like, this one's better at this one's better at that.
Right.
And lastly, search for ideas for social media posts. Just that string, ideas for social media posts. And you will find a bunch. I have like 5 or 6 that I'll share. And they're just about, 100 killer ideas for your social media.
Which is super fun.
Right.
Sometimes it's just fun to like get a fresh batch of ideas.
Exactly. And some of them are very, like you said, Mad Libs, like fill in the blank, like what's the worst blah, blah, blah you ever had? Or what,
Right.
so there is a lot of free stuff out there that you can find. So don't feel like, I have to do this all myself and I have to think it all myself. And I have to, and also if you have people that you love following, I wouldn't directly copy their content, but use them as an inspiration source. If they're talking about a breakup, maybe you talk about something in a different manner. If they're talking about budgeting, maybe you kind of chime in, something different. Don't copy them word for word or anything like that, but you can get a lot of inspiration out there for free.
Right.
So that was kind of what I wanted to just talk about. Take the pressure off yourself, lighten up a little bit and have fun with social media and use tools to help you get there. And if you do nothing else but that in the next year, I think your opinion of social media will shift so much, or it'll become just such a small part of your business that it's not really detracting from anything else.
Right. Right. Okay. So people ask me lots of questions about social media too, just because it's clear that I use it. Right.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, I would love to ask you a few of the questions that have come up.
Yep, absolutely.
Your take on some of it. So we kind of alluded to this earlier, but just all of the freaking options, right? Yep. And now there's Snapchat.
Yeah.
FFS.
Just FFS for sure.
Right. You look at it and you're like, I think the filters are really cute and funny, but I like have no sense about how that could help me in my business whatsoever. And so it doesn't because I don't use it. But I think one of the questions is like, so what's the best one for me to be on? Or what's the best social media platform? Like, where do I need to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, there's no best. And there's maybe best for you and your business, but there is no, like, this is the one thing you have to be doing. And they do go through cycles where like 5 or 6 years ago, Facebook was amazing. And then Twitter came along. And then Twitter became the thing that was amazing. And then LinkedIn happened for business. And then, and they just built. So I would say, I know so little about Instagram and Pinterest, right? I know enough to be dangerous. And I know a little bit about Snapchat, but it really depends on your business, who your target customers are, and the type of content you want to post. And that's where I said you have to do a little bit of thinking about who you want to be on social media.
Right. Just you're reminding me of something. I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever heard of this book?
Yes.
Okay. So Gary Vee wrote this book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, where he talks about all of the different social media platforms and kind of what they're good for, how to speak their language. So this, I'm seriously just going to recommend. I'm going to tell you straight out, it felt less valuable than I thought it was going to be because it was just different. The content was just a little bit different than what I thought. But he's brilliant, and he literally breaks down like 2 posts on Twitter, and he'll talk about why this one hits and why this one misses. So he's really smart about like, he talks a lot about what's native to the platform. So like what Facebook considers native versus what Instagram considers native. And so if you really know nothing like about which ones you might maybe should be on. This is seriously a book to check out. So I thought I would just point out there it sits on my. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say just real quick for people who are watching this, LinkedIn is a fantastic tool for your professional business for wanting to network. If you don't have, and when I say professional business, I don't mean that in like a negative implication whatsoever, but if you are running a multi-level marketing business or a direct sales business, that is not the type of thing that really belongs on LinkedIn. Now you can certainly network with other people who are in similar things on LinkedIn, but like selling your products on LinkedIn, it's kind of a no-no. You don't use LinkedIn to talk about religion. You shouldn't be talking about your health. It's not a dating site, although there's really gross stuff happening on there. So LinkedIn is really people. Yeah, exactly. LinkedIn is a really, it's a business tool for your business and for growing your professional network.
Right.
Instagram and Pinterest, way better for you if you have super cool, visually appealing content and you really want to get your images out there. And if you sell physical products, then they are really no-brainers, right? Like if you're selling handmade soap that you make, you should be taking some good images of it and use that. But it's terrible for growing your professional network. Like
right.
You're going to find a ton of Instagram models, and you're going to find people selling fit tea, and you're going to find people selling hair vitamins. So if you're trying to go out and find like a VP of sales to get your products into something, I wouldn't be on Instagram and I wouldn't be on Pinterest.
Right.
If your target market is moms or women, not in a professional business setting, absolutely those are the right tools for you.
Right.
So really, it's not about trying to find the one perfect or the 5 perfect social media sites to be on. It's having a plan for the type of content you want, and being clear about where your ideal customer is likely to hang out. Mm-hmm. And that's way more important than being on Insta right now, or, being on Pinterest or whatever.
Right. And it's just deciding what works for you.
Right.
What aligns with you, what aligns with your business, what aligns with your values, how you want to show up. Because otherwise, it gets totally overwhelming. Okay, so this next question is hilarious. Basically, this person is just like, I hate social media. They hate all things social media, and it makes me irritated and cranky. So what can I do about that? You maybe answered a few of these already.
I think, a lot of people share your feelings, so don't feel like you're the only kid in the room who hates, doing arithmetic, right? Do people still say arithmetic, or am I really, really old?
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right. The 3 R's, sort of. I can't promise you're ever going to love social media. Hopefully what we can do is we can put it in its place, and we can put it on the right place on the shelf for you. Mm-hmm. And you can make it easier on yourself. So, if you hate something, it's like if you hate Brussels sprouts, I can put whatever I want on them. I might at best get you to a point where you don't immediately spit them back out at me. I don't think you're ever going to turn around and be like, I love Brussels sprouts and they're the best.
Right.
So make it easier on yourself. Stop feeling like you have to do anything. Stop feeling like you have to post every day. You have to have a schedule that doesn't work for you. You have to write about things you don't like. You have to share images. Stop feeling like there are any shoulds in your social media world, and you'll immediately feel better.
Right.
Secondly, stop focusing on perfection. Don't go into this like, I'm going to write this blog post, or I'm going to write this social media post, and I'm going to get 100 new followers from it. I don't think that ever really happens for anybody unless you're putting a ton of ads out there.
Right.
So stop putting so much pressure on each individual thing that you're doing. Again, get consistent and become authentic. And if you do those 2 things, it's way better than like setting out with a goal of gaining followers. And lastly, stop trying to be everything to everyone. Stop trying to be everywhere. Like we just talked about, you don't have to be on every social media outlet, and your target audience is probably using 1 really a lot and 2 to 3 more sometimes.
Right.
So instead of saying I have to post 7 different places every single day, I have to post one place where my target audience is likely to show up on a regular basis.
Right. Okay. Here's another question. This one I really like. Is what do I do when someone posts a comment I don't like or don't agree with? So like basically, I mean, I might add a little to this question. That's one of the scariest things about putting yourself out on social media is that you open yourself up for critical feedback, right?
Yes.
And it's weird because I think a lot of times we post things that we don't think at all are controversial, and suddenly people are posting opposing viewpoints, and you're like, I didn't even know I was on a soapbox here. Like, how did this happen, right? So what is your suggestion for how people ought to handle that? Is there a good way, a bad way? Like, what do you think? I definitely have thoughts about it too, but would love
I would love to hear your thoughts. So here are mine. I'm going to use some not nice language.
You can swear all you want. It's after 8.
In any focus group of anything, whether you're at church, whether you're at your kid's school program, whether you're at the mall, whether you're in a Facebook group, there's a douchebag there, right? There's at least one that you will run into somebody who will get butt hurt over you saying you liked a rainbow in the sky. So I think it's really important to like step back, and we all suck at this, right? Like you immediately get, well, I'm going to teach you a lesson, right?
Right.
So step back, look at what's been said. Where has it been said? How much do you care about the person and the message? Okay. You should all know by now that there are people out there who are kind of professional assholes online, and they call them trolls.
Right.
And their whole job, what they live for in life is getting up in the morning, saying controversial things and starting shit online.
Right.
So when you have a group or a page somewhere that you manage, and it's like where you're trying to grow a specific community, things that get said in there hold a lot more weight to me than some dumbass on Twitter. Okay.
Me too.
And if someone says you're fat, you suck, I don't like you, how would you react if someone said that to you in person? I mean, you can't hit through your computer, but my guess is you would just ignore it and walk away. So really like step back and think about, does this matter? If they're just being a jerk, if they're just there to cause chaos, or if they've really broken a rule that you've set for your community, then I think at that point you delete their message and you send them a very strongly worded private message. You don't have to swear, and just say, this is unacceptable behavior. Check out our group rules. You know, depending on the severity, you may at that point just even block and kick them out, or you may say, you've really crossed a line. You need to review our rules, and the next time it happens, you'll be blocked. Simple as that. If they're just being a jerk and no one else is really interacting with it, and you know that your audience just realizes that person's a jerk, I wouldn't even interact with it. I wouldn't. And it's also like you have to pick your battles a little bit. So if it's something you don't personally agree with, or if somebody has like really hit one of your hot buttons, why did they hit that hot button? If you post something, so I know like Ashley had a post that she had made, and she talked about I think in group school, and someone came back and like, you could tell she hit this person's hot button and they really hit her hot button. Why? Like, and then what I would say is pick your battle and try to respond in a way that doesn't inflame the situation.
Right.
So you can respond and say, hey, I cordially disagree with what you just said, and here's why. And a lot of times when someone hits your hot button, it's kind of nice to step back and think like, do I need to learn something about myself right now? Or are they just having a bad day? Are they really challenging my belief? Like what's going on here that I'm reacting like this? So sometimes you can turn that into a total great learning situation. You can diffuse the situation, or just even have a really good conversation with 2 people disagreeing completely and walk away from it. And sometimes you just need to ignore it. You just need to like disengage and realize, I am never going to get you to see my viewpoint. I don't care to see your viewpoint. Have your opinion. Thanks so much for it.
Right.
And I'd also say, like, gauge by the severity of what's said. You know, what did they actually say? I disagree with you. Okay, you're allowed to.
Right.
Stupid, you suck, and what you're saying is hurting people. That's probably something where you have to step in a little bit more.
Right.
And then lastly, how much damage are you going to do if you ignore it versus how much damage are you going to do by addressing it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a big...
Oh, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, if you're a big bank and someone in a thread of 3,000 people says, I hate your policies and you're defrauding people and you screwed me out of money, you have to respond to that. Even if it's just, let's take this offline, you have to show that you're being responsive.
Mm-hmm.
So not a great answer, but I think it's stop and think about the situation and what really needs to happen with it. And then now your thoughts.
Yeah. So Ashley's post, I kind of had forgotten about that. So I think in a situation like that where somebody in a group in particular, so groups are different and they're more sacred, and there's usually rules in place, right, to kind of govern how people should act in them. And so obviously you can defer to that, but a lot of times people, like, you don't know what's going on with them, and you don't know what's causing them to respond like that. So I think we almost always have to address those things when they're in a group like that, because we are holding space for people, right?
Right.
But I think the whole thing is it's so quick. We're so quick to want to defend ourselves.
Yep.
And that's engaging. Like, so that's always my statement, is like, just don't engage, at least right away. And I'm not saying don't respond, but I'm saying don't engage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't actually step into that with them and put yourself in a position where you feel like you have to defend yourself.
Right.
I think every negative comment is an opportunity to show the rest of the people in that group and the person commenting who you really are.
Right.
And we, again, like, social media is not a place to convince people of anything.
Right.
I swear, it is just not. You know, you look at the political climate, not, we are not even having it's not discourse anymore. It's just straight up, headbutting conflict. So I think everything you said makes perfect sense to me. And the other thing I remember saying to her is that, when you own a group like that, you maintain and control it, and you have the power. And when you engage with people in that way, and you start to take on a tone of defensiveness, it's literally like handing over the power of the group to that person. And they don't deserve that. They deserve a response. Especially, like you said, I think the nature of that one was like, you're hurting. I can't believe you're hurting people.
Yep.
I would have to respond to that as well. But I think it's always just to say, like, it makes me really sad that you see it that way.
Right.
In this environment, everyone's entitled to come to the table with their set of opinions. And for me, I would try really hard to engage them in a way where I'm trying to figure out where the hell they're coming from.
Yes, I think curiosity helps diffuse a lot of things. And if Ashley's watching this back later, I don't want to pick on you, and I'm not.
She'll be. Right.
I'm not at all saying you didn't handle that right or anything.
Me neither.
It's really tough when it's your own personal group, because the people that are in your group and have been in that group have a certain level of trust with you and things that they expect out of you, and you're like the teacher, right? You're supposed to maintain what happens in that small enclosed environment.
Right.
So in a group or on a page that you own, you almost always have to respond. Right. How you do that, and like, hey, if you say something really terrible, I'm going to get pissed off. And given the day, my response back to you is going to be vastly different. Today, I would like burn your house down and make you cry in front of your grandma. Next week, I might be like, whatever, I don't like you. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I think that there's a certain element, and like you said, don't engage. Like, you can't win against crazy. Mm-hmm. And if someone's intention is to really hurt you, like, you can't keep going to their level, because it just escalates.
Right.
Two things I would say, two phrases that are fantastic, because some people, again, in the world just suck.
They do.
Instead of no but or yes but, yes and.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I see your point, and here's my point.
Right.
Or yes, I see where you're coming from, and this is what I actually intended. And the other thing would be like, oh, I've never looked at it from that perspective. How unique. Thanks so much. And walk away.
Totally.
I
Right.
full on think you're wrong and stupid, but I am going to be like, oh, bless your heart for thinking that, and then smile and walk away.
Right. I think the biggest thing that we always need to remember is that social media is it's public.
Right.
If anybody in the public can see and read what you put out there, even in a group, you've decided to let these people in, right? It's still public to a degree.
Yep.
You know, we have to keep our minds and hearts open to the fact that people are going to disagree.
And I think you also,
I follow some big threads, and when I see
Right.
There was this author, she shared this story, and it went literally viral. Like, she was featured on TV somewhere about this thing, and these people were really hot. I mean, it was really controversial what she had done, and she has a camp, and there's another camp, like of a whole bunch of people. And
Right.
she literally, I read the thread, and it was like coming back after every single post. And I
Yep.
thought, why are you doing that? And finally someone said, you're the one that chose to share this.
Right.
Like, so we have to kind of keep that in perspective too, right? Knowing full well that not everyone's going to get it.
Right.
And that seriously is what makes the world go round, and that's okay. So yeah, if you can say something like, bless your sweet heart for thinking the way that you do, and you can mutter all your obscenities under your breath, and it's fine. But
And I think
it's about damage control, like you said,
it is. And it's perfectly fine to say to somebody within that group or thread, I'd really like to explore this more with you, but not here.
Right. Totally.
Can we have a private message?
Mhm.
And when we're talking specifically about groups, for instance, Groove School, if someone's been in Groove School from day one, if they're an OGGS, I would imagine that their opinion carries the slightest bit more weight with you than somebody who joined yesterday. Now, not because you play favorites, but because that person who's been there for 7, 8, 9 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, they've interacted with you. They've shared some really personal things.
Right.
Have, they've been a part of that community, and they've followed the community rules, and they have helped the community, hopefully, or there's no reason for them to be there.
Right.
Someone that comes in tomorrow and just wants to start stuff, no matter where their headspace is, that's totally different than me coming in and saying, Rebecca, I totally disagree with what you said yesterday.
Right.
It just doesn't sit right with me, and I'd like to talk about why.
Right.
That is a lot different than I just joined yesterday and I don't like you. Or because some groups are open and other people can add them, I don't even know why I'm here and I don't like you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, it is really about picking your battles.
Totally. But I think it's such a great question, because
it is. It's really good.
Because you can, and I think the truth is, if you're not making anybody like a little uncomfortable ever, then you're not really taking a stand about anything.
Right.
I mean, not to say that you need to be all like controversial, because that's not who I am either, but you've got to be for something. And as soon as you're for something, it tends to mean you're against other things.
Right.
So the people that are for those things are going to be against you. And it just becomes more transparent, and people are uglier on social media because they get to hide behind their computer,
Yes. And I would honestly say right now we're living in a climate, specifically in the US and a little bit in the UK and some other countries, where the middle ground has really fallen away. You either have to be extremely this way or extremely that way. And if you're not extremely one way or the other, people, they don't know how to react. Like they don't want you to have a sense of common sense and the ability to say, it is not black and white. There's a whole lot of gray area here, and I see valid things over here and valid things over here. So in a year, maybe the climate on social media will be completely different. We don't know. Maybe it'll get worse, But yeah, I think it's important to just gauge the situation one-on-one and try to do your best, and realize that sometimes you're going to screw up,
Right.
That's who you are. You're a human.
Okay. Tiff, can you think of any other questions? I'm kind of looking through our questions. I feel like we've there's maybe one that we haven't specifically touched on, and it's just kind of engagement around posts. So like, I don't like, so somebody basically said, I don't feel like I get enough interaction. So whether it's on every post that you write, or if you have a group or whatever, the question is simply like, what do I do? How do I change that?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, realize that even the people who seem to be doing social media right aren't getting interaction on every single post.
Right.
And like you just said, if you're not invoking or evoking feelings, you're probably not going to get much engagement off of it, because you might get a smiley face or you might get a sad face. But if you're not specifically pushing some buttons in people, they're probably not going to interact a lot.
Right.
I would say just general basics. Look at your last few X time period of posts and try to figure out like what type of content got more interaction, and what type of interaction, and what do you actually want for interaction. If you want 500 likes and images are the things that get you that, aim towards that. If you're looking for a conversation starter, what types of questions did you ask, or what types of content did you post? And then try to replicate that. And still realize that occasionally you're just not going to get things. Every social media page or tool has its own algorithm for when people actually see content, how often they see your content. And the better your content does, the more it's shown to your audience, if you pay to play on some of them. So again, stop aiming for perfection, but you can kind of test and see what works better. I would say start adding in some silly stuff, start asking some crazy questions. Start, what's your favorite food? What do you hate about Christmas? What do you, or maybe that's a hot button topic, but, try to ask questions. I think that's the big one. If you do like a quick little 2-question poll, and it's like so I'll go back to Groove School. I don't always want to pop into Groove School every day and think about something heavy. I just don't, Some days I don't want to work on myself, but if you ask me what my favorite color is and what kind of shoes I like, and if I'd rather have chocolate or vanilla, I'll answer that all day long, because those are,
Right.
So ask questions, pay attention to the responses. If you feel like you're really not getting a lot of interaction, you can always post into the group or your followers and say, hey, I just feel like I don't get a lot of interaction. I'd like to ask why. Are you not seeing my posts? Do you not like my posts? Is it not fit for you? And then just make sure you really pay attention to what they're saying.
I think that is something I think I shared with you, that I have felt a huge shift in the engagement around my social media. And it's because I'm asking questions, and they're questions I actually want to talk about.
Right.
I mean, that's what I said to you. Like, I don't ask a question unless I think it's like funny or like I really want to know. I mean, no matter what, I really want to know. But it's like, if I don't want to talk about it, I'm not going to ask the question. So I think sometimes we do things because we think we should. Like, this is the kind of question I should ask. Screw that. If you don't care, like if you don't really want to sit and respond to people about said question, like don't ask that question, and think about the things like, if I, so sometimes what I do, because sometimes it's really hard to remember that all the people on the other side of the computers are real people.
Right.
Like it's hard sometimes to remember that. So if you think, like, if I could sit these 5-10 women around my kitchen table, what would I want to talk to them about?
Exactly.
Like if I could go to a dinner party where everything was easy, what would be the fun things we could talk about? And sometimes it's simply a matter of like doing an inventory of your own interests and saying like, what's the stuff I want to talk about? Because you're the one leading it. And it comes out so much more authentically if you actually care, and want to talk about that thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's made a big difference for me,
It definitely does. And I think you hit on a really good point there of these are people and they're humans. And you also hit on a really good point of, if you don't care about it, why will anyone else? Like, and that's something I've said over and over to many clients. Like, if you stop giving 2 craps about this, everyone else will, because you are the leader. And why should anybody else care any more about what you're doing than what you're doing? And so I think that it is important that social media be fun for you, and it be a tool of engagement and interaction for you, and that you're getting something from it as much as anybody else. And the other point I would mention with that is you have to be interacting as well. So if you post something and you walk away for 4 days and people are commenting, they're expecting a little interaction and play there. You don't have to be on your Facebook page all day. You don't have to be in Twitter 40 times a day. But when you post something that you know is going to get engagement, there's a time period where you should be in there and responding. And you get to set that. It can be, I check it for an hour, or I check it 3 times a day, or what have you. You're going to get most of your interactions typically right off the bat. So, if you post at 10 in the morning, that should be a time where you have some availability to be in there a little bit.
Right. Right. I think one of the coolest things about the random question thing is that sometimes you learn fun things about people that are either in a group with you or on your page. And then later you might be scrolling through your newsfeed and some random bullshit cat video pops up, for example, and I think of you, right? And then I tag you in it.
Yes.
And it's like a real relationship building opportunity. And it isn't about me selling you anything. It's about us creating a real connection. And
exactly.
And it takes work, just like it does in real life with relationships. I think relationships in real life are as hard, if not harder, than social media. It's just as hard. So I think sometimes we have to release ourselves of this idea that it's easy because they don't have to see you. And it's, you know what I mean? Because you still have to be a real person that's talking about real things that matter to you. I don't know. It's been the coolest thing in the world to randomly get a Facebook message from somebody that follows me, hangs out on my business page even. And they'll say, this made me think of you.
Yep.
And I'm like, the only reason that happens is because you feel like you know me.
Exactly.
And
that's what I think people should want to get out of using social media for their business, is that you want people to know you. You want them to know your business, but you want them to know who you are as a human. Because if they connect with you as a human, they're probably going to be more invested in your products. I'll say something real quick and then I'll let you talk. But there's something called a ladder of trust. And if I don't trust you, I will never buy your product.
Right.
And there have been many studies out there about how many times you have to interact with somebody before they actually trust you enough to give you money. And it's over 7 times. So, and that's not just buy my product, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. It's 7 real interactions where they get to know and trust you. Because your name's not Amazon. So, I trust Amazon to a certain extent. I don't know you from anybody else. Why would I give you any amount of money to do anything? Because I have a real fear that you're actually going to be a trustworthy human.
Right.
So that's what I was going to say.
Okay. So what I was going to share ties directly into that. So in marketing, it's called the know, like, and trust factor. So the KLT factor.
Yep.
So people can't trust you. Generally, people, all things being equal, they spend more money with people that they like and trust, right?
Right.
So trust comes from being liked comes from being known. And I think sometimes we try to short circuit that and we aim for being likable.
Yes.
Which is not the point, right? I can't show up on social media every day aiming to be likable. I have to aim to be Rebecca.
Right.
And some will like me and some won't, but the ones that like me will really, truly like me, right? And then they trust me. So this whole vulnerability thing, it's a real thing. It's an important thing. And we have to be who we really are.
Yes.
It's not something that you can just zip around. And that's why there's no magic bullet, right? Whether it's a post or a schedule or anything, it's so much more nuanced than that. And it's got to be customized. It's individualized. It's personal.
Right.
It's social.
It is. It's social. Social.
Yeah. Social. I know. See, if I hadn't been dealing with a sick child, I would totally
know.
be chugging a beer right now. But
I'm sorry.
no, you don't have to be sorry. I'm
Next
sorry. It was such a
time.
hot mess. But I think, Tiff, is there anything else? Because I feel like as I look through the questions that I had, I feel
we
like
could talk for hours about
I
social
know.
media, right? If anybody has questions, please just direct them to me. You can tag me on Facebook or put it in the Groove Seekers group. So if there's something that I didn't cover and you're not real sure of, when we do this for Groove School, I will have somewhat of this platform, but be building off of it as well.
Okay, perfect.
So the Groove School one will also be a little bit different. So if you're in Groove School, check that one out.
Okay.
But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm not really at a point in my career where I want to do social media for other people.
Right.
But I'm definitely at a point where I'd love to sit down and talk to you about it. I'd love to help you come up with a plan for social media. That would be more my groove at this point.
Okay,
So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just say, even though I'm not a social media expert, I certainly use it every day. And so
Right.
I too am willing and happy to kind of talk through strategy with people. Because I think, again, like what you said kind of right at the beginning is that there's always like the next new hot thing. And just
Right.
because it might be hot doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like
Right.
Facebook Lives have been an amazing addition for my business. I love them. I feel connection with the people that listen to them, and the replays are always well watched and all that stuff. That's not going to be great for everybody, So I think a lot of it is just being honest with yourself, being honest about how you want to use it. But absolutely, I mean, I want people, if you guys are watching this on the replay and you're like, I don't really get what they were talking about at this part, just ask the question. Post it right on the comments, because I'll post the replay as soon as the recording gets uploaded, and it'll be right there. So all you got to do is just ask, because it can be overwhelming. Like no matter what, no matter how easy we want to make it, it can be super overwhelming. So
yeah, absolutely. If anyone has questions,
thank you so much for your time. And then just for Groove Schoolers, 28th, right? We're doing that at 11 a.m. I believe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for that. And Groove Seekers, thank you all for hanging out with us. And Tiff,
yay.
Scotchy.
Yeah. Now it's bedtime.
I know, right? Oh, it's all good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and
Thank you.
all your wisdom. Okay.
Thanks everyone for watching and joining. Have a great night.
Okay. You too, Tiff. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.